Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So I wanted to talk today about Celine bags and more specifically old Celine bags that I just think are phenomenal finds on the pre-loved market that you can buy right now. Some incredible prices, basically the prices of Coach bags. And I don't think things are gonna stay like this, but I have been following Celine as a brand, what LVMH has been doing with this brand. And what is very noticeable to me was, I think with this last debut, there is a lot of references to past eras that were made. Michael Ryder, of course, being with Phoebe Philo at Celine, there is going to be a return to her aesthetic. And I think as her bags were incredibly successful, so beloved, so defining of this brand, I think we're going to see more of it, maybe more like transformed ways. But I just think Celine bags, old Celine specifically, are some of the best bags you can buy right now pre-loved. And some of them feel incredibly relevant now. And the reason being is largely Celine as a brand during the Eddie years, it was a rejection. I don't want to say rejection, but it was just, not about her era. They really did phase out her era. And as a result, the way that impacted the pre-love market, people sold off their bags. And I just think there was this view that old Celine, not to me, but there was sort of this view just because, it was no longer available, that it was viewed as uncool and to not buy it. It's not quote unquote the trend. And many people sold off their bags. Of course, these bags have been sitting on the pre-love market for years and years and years. And I think they reached probably like their lowest point, at least for the first bag I'm going to talk about. But I thought we'd just go over 10 bags that I think still hit today in 2025, 2026. Some of them, again, are priced so well. So I thought we'd talk about some of these bags. Of course, we've talked about the Luggage bag ad nauseum at this point. It's, of course, probably the most iconic Celine bag. I've always appreciated the Luggage. Over time, these bags have continuously plummeted in price. There are a lot of sales going on right now. This time during the summer, it's a really great time to buy bags, I find. But if you've ever wanted this style, I think this is the best price it's ever going to be. These bags range anywhere from like $400, $500 up to the $1,000 price point. Of course, there's going to be the Smiling Phantom, which we're going to see. I don't want to think about how that bag is going to be priced. I was just looking at Celine prices for a comparable style that I don't even think is as big, but if I look at the Celine 16, the classique size, this isn't even like as large, I think. The Phantom is a very big bag, but I think this might be a little bit shorter and more east-west, but that bag starts at $5,200 USD. So I think this is going to be probably priced at a similar price point. Would I want to spend $5,200? Maybe not, but like a $500 one, why not? Now, I'm really cautious to use the word investment, but I do think if you've always wanted this bag, I feel like this bag will go up in price. I think in a year from now, at least, it will be worth a lot more than it is right now. This is a very iconic bag that has been quite undervalued. I know there are a lot of Celine lovers that watch my channel, and we're going to see an uptick from that. Another thing about these bags is the names are extremely deceptive. When it says micro luggage, it is not like the size of a micro bag. Look at the dimensions. They're quite big bags, but if that bag is just not your vibe, I totally get it. I think there is sort of like a point where you don't need to have so many tote bags. So I thought we would talk about 9 more Celine bags that I think are really relevant for 2025 or 2026 to consider for great prices right now. So I want to talk about the Celine Blade Flap on the pre-love market. These bags can be anywhere like around the 400, even less. We did see on the runway there was this shoulder bag that I described as a Row Nuance, but it had like a little triumph. I think consider this style. It's very chic. It's very stylish. Has that longer fold over flap that feels a little bit minimal. As a bit of an alternative to the Nuance, it feels actually quite Kate to me. Kate has been doing these like horizontal metal closure bits, but Phoebe did this before that. Super understated. I think it has that like Celine girl attitude that still feels in line with that more like minimal style. Big fan of this bag. Another style that I think is, I would describe as like the OG park tote, the Sosango bucket. It has like the exterior pockets, so there's a little bit more organization. I think this is a great option you can find for like a pretty decent price on the pre-love market. The next bag I also want to talk about is the Celine curved bag. This reminds me of some of the bags that we saw, I think, from the Gucci spring summer collection. It's kind of like bag with like this wrist strap, but it's not like a wristlet. It does look like a hot water bag, but it's not like a classic silhouette. I feel like it's a little bit more of an experimental, unusual style, kind of wrist strap, you know, was something that we did see at Gucci and Balenciaga as well. So interesting to note here. Another bag that I think is a very beloved bag from that era is the Celine Trio. Of course, there's the new Phoebe Philo Gig bag, which is more of like an updated version. I've always felt like this bag has very like Carolyn Bessette Kennedy energy to it, like just with this like very minimal pouch. It was also a bag that Phoebe Philo herself wore. This bag was like at or like under the $1,000 price point in the 2010s. You just don't see that in 2025. But yeah, these bags you can find for like $200. Another style I wanted to bring was the Cabas tote, but more specifically in this woven fabric with this like striping, which we've been seeing I think a lot more just even on like the fashion and like ready to wear side. But if I think about the Roe Barn tote with like the striping, Celine does have like a leather counterpart, but something about this feels now it hits today. And the multicolor combinations or like the striping versions, I think this is a really great style. Another bag that I also think feels quite relevant is the big bag. So this again has that kind of like winged silhouette that is very signature to the old Celine era, but it's got that belt feature, which we've been seeing on bags from Prada to Moschino, various other brands, but I just think this kind of has that same kind of energy, but it's done in like an old Celine kind of way. Another style I also want to mention that is very similar to Phoebe Philo's new brand, the Kit Cabas, is the trapeze bag. Now I saw this one on Fashion File. It's like a calf hair bag and it's going for $325. Considering these bags were going for like $37.50, it says it's like 91% off retail. Like that is kind of a steal. Like if you like this style, it was actually a very popular style back in the day. I do think some of these bigger bags, especially though, can be on the heavier side. A lot of Celine bags, what makes them I think a little bit more premium than other bags is that they are leather lined, but it does add a little bit more weight. If you're in the market for like a big bag, you know, there's definitely this style. Another really great bag is the tie knot bag. Layla Sophia actually mentioned this in her video, and I just think this has a chic elegance about it. It's not overstated, but it still has with the little like handle details, and that is a flap that you can tuck in. So if you kind of just want like an easy access tote or you want something that just has that closure, there's definitely that. It reminds me a little bit of the Daniel Lee era Bottega Veneta Arco tote. This has that like signature old Celine wing shape, which I think more and more brands are doing, like YSL, Chanel, the Roe Marlowe. You can find these bags for roughly around the $500 price point. $500 is the going price for a lot of contemporary brands, and I think a very undervalued style of bag that feels like more in the swing of like the styles that we are seeing. And then the final bag I want to mention is the Celine Maiden pouch. The thing about Phoebe Philo is she would use logos like sparingly. So when seeing a logo like this, it does have a little bit more impact, especially because this has like the accent on it. Another style that, you know, also has this kind of energy is tote she did with like the logo. She didn't put logos everywhere, but that's why I feel like when you see it with that little accent, it just feels a little bit more impactful. I also think again, it kind of has that CBK like pouch energy. So yeah, that is my list, and I thought I'd specifically highlight bags that I think are very much in line with a lot of the styles we were seeing, but the old Celine era had so many other amazing styles. I think a lot of these bags with like a prominent wingspan is very much a Phoebe Philo look. I think another style of bag which has not been very much in style is the Celine Classic, which feels more in line with like the heritage with these like very like classic looking crossbody styles. I will say I don't think it's like the it silhouette, but I do think it's very classic. The silhouette of what is quote unquote popular swings with the times. I think fashion has been really enjoying like shoulder bags, but the Classic for me is a personal favorite. I also love the clasp. I love the eyelet pouch. There are a lot of really cool unique bags, very like artsy bags from her era. I always love those geometric handled bags or like the bags with like the unique rings. She had bags with like really cool like laser cut and like fringes. I love this like clasp bag with the mesh material, how there were those like fisherman bags and you could place your Celine pouch bag. It just felt a lot more like experimental, but still spoke to this modern minimalist sensibility. There are just so many amazing bags from her era, and I think the era of Celine was an era of Celine that felt very modern. It wasn't about heritage, it wasn't about, you know, looking back for nostalgia, it wasn't about slapping a logo on the trending silhouette. Phoebe, I think, really understood the special relationship women have with their handbags and wanted to make bags that were both purposeful but also statements of expression. But yes, that's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!